So, you've just bought Pavlov VR, and you're terrible. It's okay. Everyone starts off really bad, but don't worry. If you follow these quick, actual real tips, we're going to get you pretty good. The first thing that we're going to go over is the quick settings. So I'm going to hold the top left button and the trigger, and then go over to settings. The first things you want to go over is things like your player input. Things like free spectating and your arm feed is fine, but the most important ones for me is the virtual stock and hide ammo count. If you turn your ammo count on, that way you can see how many bullets are left in your clip or magazine while you're firing. The next piece is virtual stock. I'm going to show you with and without. Let's turn off virtual stock for a moment. Grenade hug! So right now I have virtual stock turned off, and here's what that means. Both hands are going to really control this rifle. So if you're very good and you're already a professional killer, you probably don't want to use virtual stock because you want to be able to turn your rifle wherever you want. Most players, I would say 90% of players, will use virtual stock. But this is me trying to fire without virtual stock. Now this is it with virtual stock on. You'll notice that when I grip with my offhand, it's going to kind of like snap to an area. This is really great, so it simulates like you having a stock, and then this is me firing with the virtual stock on. It feels much easier to control this way, and if an enemy really is right on top of you, you can easily beam for those headshots. The only downside with virtual stock is you can't put it wherever you want. So if you're trying to hold it with two hands and really get your arm up in the air, it's a little difficult to do so. So if you're someone that likes to blind fire around corners, virtual stock is not for you. This is me trying to use virtual stock to fire around this corner. See how it's snapping? This is with virtual stock on. Look at this blind fire capability. So now that you have the aiming preferences down, I actually want to go over things like shooting your guns, because Pavlov has tons of recoil. Your AK-47 is a great starter gun. Schmitto, have you ever used this AK-47 in Pavlov?
I've used it a few times.
Great. Now, this one is actually pretty important because it only has one upgrade, which is the suppressor. So we'll go over upgrades in a couple of minutes, but let's just use this basic AK. So imagine you walk into this room and you turn left. Oh no, panic, an enemy. What are you gonna do? Well, most players would bring their AK-47 up and start firing. You're gonna notice that it goes into the air. Look at that. Uh-oh, I hope I live. Before I show you the next scenario, I have to show you how to control your recoil. Imagine right now you're playing Call of Duty or Battlefield, any of your favorite FPS games on your PC. So when you're firing on your PC, don't you move your mouse down just slightly enough while you're firing in full auto? Well, you need to do the same thing with your offhand weapon. So this is me firing without any type of, recoil reduction. See that climb? Let's reload this. Now, this is with me slightly pulling it down. Boom! Imagine that wall was Schmitto's face. It does take a little bit of practice, but I'll show you in the next scenario. You walk into this room and you turn left. Oh no, an enemy! What am I gonna do? Well, I'm gonna mount up my gun and start firing it with recoil control. Instant beamed headshot. And now you are John Wick. So now that you've seen recoil control with a basic rifle like an AK-47, we need to put this into practice on a moving target. So Schmitto, would you do me a favor and go in that corner over there? Now Schmitto, I just want you to run like your life depends on it under this catwalk, and I'm gonna fire at you with no recoil control. Are you ready? Okay, yeah, go! See how he escaped? Now let's try shooting at Schmitto with some recoil control. Okay, bud, run like your life depends on it. He didn't get far. So back to shooting a moving target. You need to, of course, practice recoil control and, of course, Space Invaders. You want to shoot to where they are going. But Pavlov has a cool feature where when you're shooting an enemy and making contact, not only will you see blood flying, but their player model will actually slow down. So, Schmidt, why don't you try sprinting as fast as you can under here? I won't shoot you. Look at him go. Now what I'm going to do is Schmitto's going to run underneath there, and I'm going to put a couple of rounds in his chest, and you're going to notice how slow he goes. Okay, bud, good luck. You see him start to slow down? So knowing that, you could slow your enemy down before you go for that headshot. Unless you're a god, and of course, just beam that headshot right away. Now, of course, there's more to Pavlov than just shooting. You have to also have self-preservation. So over here's a bunch of cover. And if Schmitto pops out right now, you could pop out now, Schmitto. Just like that, you're going to need to find some cover, because an enemy behind cover when you have none is probably an instant death sentence for you. So the first thing I need to do is probably get out of his line of sight. He's going to want to shoot at my head, so I can bob and weave and get directly under here. So now I have cover. The next part of this one is going to be returning fire. You don't want to peek out in the same spot you came from, because that means they're going to aim there again. But you also have to understand that the enemy is probably taking cover as well. So what you need to do is keep them guessing. You can blind fire a couple shots, but pop out of different areas, pop back in, and keep firing from different areas as well. You don't really want to do full auto here. And just like that, Schmitto was obliterated. Now the next part is knowing the effective combat range. So for this one, this is a full auto rifle. So I can attempt to beam this one and do some recoil control, but that's not really the best thing. So almost all rifles have a way of swapping fire modes. So for me on my right hand controller, if I tap the lower button, which is probably the A or X button, depending on what you're using, I'm gonna go ahead and tap that. You're gonna hear a click, and now when I hold the trigger down, it'll fire just once. So what this is great is for good tapping. Think, Call of Duty, think Battlefield, where now I can really retain most of my accuracy and just keep doing these one taps on a target. And it makes it really hard for them to return fire, because once again, in this game, when you're getting shot, you slow down. So we just went over things like shooting and recoil control. We also went over things like cover, but the next important thing is listening. If you're playing this game on mute, you're gonna lose. So here's what I recommend. If you're going around sprinting in full auto like this one, you're gonna die a very tragic death. But what you can do is know that this is going to be a target area. So if I were to approach here, know that there's like different areas to get shot from. So what you can do is wait and listen for your opponents. You guys hear those footsteps? Boom! So sound is very important in the game. Things from enemy movement is very important, but also enemy reloading. This is the sound of me reloading. Now let's listen to Schmitto up close. Now I'm gonna go over here, and Schmitto, why don't you try reloading again? So what you want to do is listen very carefully for those sounds, because rule of thumb is everybody reloads. So why don't you go ahead and waste some ammo, bud, and then reload. Boom, that's when you would attack. Pretty straightforward. Yeah! Speaking of reloading, a lot of guns have different ways of reloading. So this AK-47 has this little banana clip at the bottom, so I'll use the trigger to bring that in and out. But when you're in combat, you're going to sometimes need a quick release, right? This gun can't quick release. Don't shoot yourself in the head. Don't do it. So like I was saying, this gun can't quick release with the top button. So if you were firing like so, and you're like, oh my God, there's a guy up there, and you run out of ammo, you're gonna try to press the quick release and then grab your ammo and realize you're screwed. But the great part about having a banana clip is once you would grab this, you could actually hit it out of your rifle and then quick reload. Just make sure if you've ran out of bullets, you have to re-rack your gun. Now, still staying on reloads, there's a lot of things you can do in a fight to actually trick your enemy to think that you don't or do have ammo. So if I had an AK-47 and I'm kind of returning fire here, so I know there's about 31 bullets in this one. So there's always will still be one in the chamber here, so I can pre-grab this one, and while I'm firing, knock it out and quick reload. And because there was still one already in this chamber, I could still do full auto. So once again, I can be like, you'll never get me, Schmitto, and I'm still ready to go. So when you first spawn in certain game modes, you can actually buy different gear. So if you click in the right thumbstick, I have this radial wheel. Think Counter-Strike. I'm gonna go to rifles, and I'm gonna choose this nice little, I think this is an M4. So we have this M4 that has almost nothing on it. We're gonna go to upgrades, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this back like bump stock on this one and kind of like a holographic sight as well. You can customize this to your liking, things like ACOGs and snipers and laser sights, but just be careful when doing it. So now that I have this awesome carbine selected, I have a nice holographic scope on this one. The only thing with these scopes, you want to be careful. You want to know like how far away from your body it is. If you put your arms really far away from your body like this one, you're probably going to miss like a lot of your shots. What I would recommend is probably putting it pretty close to your face. Sometimes you can extend your thumb and put your thumb like right under your chin or lip to kind of tell you exactly where you're going to be firing. But just know that with some of these scopes, if you go into full auto, it's going to clip through your face like this. And that's no good. So what you would want to make sure is that it's slightly in front, and that's why, because I use virtual stock and nothing else, I kind of use like my hands to kind of guide this. So when I'm firing, I know that I'm not going to clip. And going back to one of the other tips, that's why switching fire modes is so important. If I wanted to shoot an enemy over there and I'm kind of using something like this that obscures my vision, I want to switch it to single fire mode. That way it gives me really good control and I can, pop a bunch of shots right in there super accurately. So now let's go over things like your other inventory like throwables. You'll also have a knife, but sometimes you'll have a grenade. So you need to pull the pin on this grenade first, prime it with the trigger, and then toss it like a baseball. But just know that it doesn't really have full collision, so if you throw it at a player, it's definitely going through them. Now, probably you've heard this tip before, but people just say aim for the head, and you're like, well, of course, aim for the head. If I can get headshots, I would just be getting headshots. So why are you telling me that? Because it is almost as simple, and let me explain. We as people want to shoot something that has the most mass, right? So for the most part, when aiming at a moving target, you're gonna probably be aiming center mass to try to get the most benefit. But if you're playing against someone that is already aiming for your head, all they have to do is pop the helmet off and then get one extra shot. And even with a low caliber gun, they can destroy you. So that's why if I was to run over here and see Schmitto, I want to aim, and let's say my body naturally aims here, don't take that first shot. Actually try to go for the head. It takes almost like a fraction of a second, but you could really improve that muscle memory. So let me show you this in action. Ready, Schmidt? Okay, go. There he is. I want to aim for that head. See, he hit me a couple times in the body and I barely took any damage. One, he was using a bad range gun, but two, I was able to just kind of boop, boop, boop. Oh, you have a helmet. This is awkward. Dodge! One of the last things I want to show you guys is sprinting. So let's open up this menu again. We're going to go into settings and go to input. I turned auto sprinting off, and here's the reason. Sometimes if you put your gun down and you're moving around kind of like half tactfully English, you're gonna think that you're being quiet, but I promise you, you're pretty much Reaper from Overwatch. So for me, that's why I turn off auto sprinting and I control the sprinting myself. So if I want to kind of be quiet, I can easily go around here and really control the speed of this one. And if I'm really in a bind, then I can quickly sprint by clicking down the left stick. And here's my final tip for you guys, and I really hope you put these to good use. You will do much better in your game. I promise you, you will at least be positive in your games. But this is the last tip, and that is being prepared for combat. So if I was standing over here with my gun down and I'm approaching like a kill zone, with my gun down, I'm not prepared for combat. I'm peeking first like an NPC, and if I do see someone, bringing my arms up in time, I'm gonna get shot in the head. So being prepared for combat is more about this. I'm not in sprint position, I'm in ready to fire position, and I'm looking where an enemy will probably appear from. So if someone is really about to attack you, I'm already ready for him before he was able to react because he was probably sprinting. Let's talk about pistols for a second, and of course we could stick on rifles, but what I really want to talk about is things where your actual human hand should be when holding a gun. See, if you got a two-handed pistol like so, I bet you your left hand right now while grabbing this one is probably floating on the side, but it doesn't have to. You can grab this one and then cross your hand underneath it like you're holding a tactical flashlight clearing out a room of terrorists. So go ahead and practice that. Grab this one and then pass your left hand underneath your right hand, and if you're doing right-handed or left-handed, just swap what I said. So once again, take your opposite hand, grab the pistol grip, and then put it right underneath your trigger hand. So now you're actually stabilizing yourself. Well, Schmitto, we have spent a long day together, and these are some good tips to use. How are you feeling with them?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Well, that's good. And always remember, if these tips don't stick, you could always take the easy way out. Well, my friends, that is it for this Pavlov tips video. Special shout out and thank you to Schmitto for helping me out. Go check out Schmitto's channel. I'll link it in the description. I hope you guys learned some tips today, and I really hope to see you on Pavlov because remember, crossplay is coming out really soon, and we'll see who reigns supreme. Oculus, PC, or PlayStation. But other than that, thank you so much. I'm Rob from Downloadable Content. Make sure to subscribe because it's free, and we will see you next time.